The moment she answered the phone, her whole body shifted, posture straightened, voice lowered, like someone else had slipped into her skin. I was 2 steps behind the doorframe, just out of her sight, holding a half-empty mug that had gone cold hours ago. "I had the best time with you," she whispered. "Not, I learned so much. Not, great networking. Not anything you'd say after a 3-day leadership conference. Just that." I didn't move, didn't breathe. My heart was doing this twitchy, hiccuping thing that made me wonder if I was about to pass out or throw up. She laughed. A soft, giddy laugh I hadn't heard in months. Definitely not since the night she claimed she was too tired to cuddle and fell asleep facing the wall. "You made me feel alive," she said. Word for word. I remember every syllable because my brain carved them into the back of my eyes. That was the moment I knew. Not suspected. Knew. She had come back glowing. Everyone noticed it. Her friends, her mom, even the barista who said, "You look refreshed," with a smile. But I knew better. You don't come back from work trips refreshed. Not when you've been dead inside for a year. And then there were the lab results. But that came later. Right now, I stood there, frozen in my own house, listening to my wife tell someone else that the time they spent together was perfect. Like I didn't exist. Like I wasn't just 10 feet away, gripping ceramic like it was the only thing anchoring me to the floor. When she hung up, she didn't even turn around. Just let out a soft sigh and whispered, "God, I miss you already." I walked away quietly. Didn't confront her. Didn't scream. Didn't throw the mug. But I did check the calendar on the fridge. And then I checked her suitcase. And after that, I made an appointment of my own. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice again, soft and trembling with excitement, saying words meant for someone else. The house felt alien, like we were two strangers camping inside a life we used to share. She was asleep in our bed, breathing evenly, and I was sitting on the kitchen floor with the fridge lights spilling over my knees, holding her suitcase like a crime scene investigator. It wasn't even locked. She had zipped it up, but hadn't bothered with the little clip she usually used for security. I unzipped it slowly, expecting nothing and everything at once. Clothes rolled perfectly. A half-empty travel-size shampoo. A badge from the conference, with her name printed in bold, except the event logo was wrong. I Googled it. No such conference existed. My chest felt like it was caving in. Underneath her clothes, in the inner pocket, I found a crumpled napkin with a hotel logo I didn't recognize and a room number scribbled on the back in black ink. Next to it, a boarding pass for a flight she'd never mentioned, connecting through a city she'd never said she was visiting. I should have confronted her right then, but I didn't. I just sat there, staring at the pieces like a man trying to assemble a puzzle that kept changing shape. The nitpicky part of me, the one she used to tease, kicked in. I started making notes on my phone, photographing everything before sliding it back exactly as I found it. I knew she'd notice if I moved even a sock. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened, humming over coffee, scrolling her phone with a half-smile. She even asked me if I'd fed Murphy, like I was the one who'd been gone for 3 days. I tried to look normal, tried to swallow the acid rising in my throat. My voice cracked when I said, "Yeah, he's fine." She didn't even look up. I decided not to wait for the truth to fall into my lap. I called the number on the hotel napkin while she was in the shower. The receptionist picked up, polite and professional. When I asked for the room number, they said the guest had already checked out. 2 guests, actually, sharing the reservation under one name I didn't recognize. That was enough to make my hand shake so hard I almost dropped the phone. And just when I thought the ground couldn't tilt any harder under me, she walked out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, phone in hand, and announced casually that her doctor's office had called. "Routine labs from my last appointment," she said, like it was nothing. "They want me to come in next week." I don't know what made me say it, but I asked, "Everything okay?" My voice sounded strange, like it was coming from someone else. She froze for a split second, so fast anyone else would have missed it, then smiled. "Yeah, just iron levels. Don't worry." But I was already past worry. The puzzle pieces were moving on their own now, and I was starting to see a picture I didn't want to believe. That night, I booked a day off work. If she thought she was the only one with plans, she was wrong. The hotel on the napkin wasn't close. It was 3 hours away in a different state, tucked behind a strip of art galleries and expensive bistros in a city we'd never visited together. The kind of place for secret weekends, not leadership summits. I drove there on a Thursday, told her I was helping my cousin move. She barely looked up from her emails. Just said, "Tell him I said hi," and went back to typing. The GPS led me to a boutique hotel with ivy on the walls and a fountain in front shaped like an abstract bird. Classy. Discreet. I parked and sat in the car for 15 minutes, rehearsing fake stories in my head in case someone asked why I was there. Eventually, I walked in and headed straight to the front desk like I belonged. The clerk didn't look up. I leaned forward and said her name. The clerk's fingers paused over the keyboard. "I'm her husband," I added, voice low. "She stayed here recently. I think something was left in the room, and she asked me to pick it up." She stared at me for a long second before saying, "One moment." She disappeared into a back room. When she returned, she was holding a white envelope. "We found this after checkout," she said. "Left in the nightstand." I thanked her and walked out without breathing. I didn't open it in the car. I drove 2 blocks away, parked in front of a bakery, and sat there for a full minute before tearing it open. Inside was a folded receipt. 2 breakfasts, 1 dinner, 1 bottle of champagne, a room service order that included chocolate strawberries, and a handwritten note on hotel stationery. "Can't stop thinking about you. You're addictive. Same time next month." No name, no number. Just a familiar looped signature that didn't belong to my wife. That night, I couldn't look her in the eyes. She noticed. She asked if something was wrong with my cousin. I lied and said he threw out his back and complained nonstop. She laughed and called him a drama queen. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Because the truth is, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to admit she'd left me emotionally long before she packed that suitcase. I wasn't ready to ask who he was, or how many conferences came before this one, or how long she'd been faking bedtime kisses and asking me to take out the trash so she could text him back. The next morning, she got another call from the doctor. I was in the hallway when she answered, thinking she was alone again. I caught just a snippet before she shut the door behind her. Wait, how is that possible? I leaned my head against the wall and shut my eyes. Something was coming, and it was bigger than a crumpled receipt or a champagne bottle or a mystery man in room 428. It was something she couldn't talk her way out of, and I was going to be ready. 3 days passed. She didn't mention the call. Not once. No update. No, it was nothing after all. Just silence, like if she didn't say it out loud, it wouldn't become real. Meanwhile, I was unraveling, pretending to live a life I was no longer a part of. I watched her stir her tea and scroll her phone and laugh at shows like nothing had shifted. But I knew. I knew the look on her face when the doctor said something she wasn't prepared to hear. I'd replayed it in my head more times than I could count. On the 4th morning, I beat the mailman to the box. I never do that. She always checks the mail first. But not that day. I waited at the window like a spy until I saw him drop the envelopes, and I was out the door before Murphy even barked. And there it was, her name, printed neatly on a white envelope from the medical center downtown. It wasn't thick, just a couple of sheets inside, probably standard lab results. But my hands shook anyway. I opened it in the garage. I couldn't risk her seeing me. I stood between boxes of Christmas decorations and old paint cans and unfolded the first page with the kind of dread you only feel when you already know the answer. And there it was. Positive. A very specific kind of positive. Something I'd tested negative for during a life insurance screening just a few months prior. Something that doesn't show up from old mistakes, only new ones. I couldn't breathe. My ears rang. The page crinkled in my hands because I didn't realize I was gripping it hard enough to tear it. I stood there in that garage, surrounded by the things we were supposed to build a future with. Camping gear, baby-named books, the crib we bought on clearance because we thought planning ahead was romantic. Everything in me broke at once. When I walked back inside, she was on the couch, legs tucked under her, watching some interior design video and sipping peppermint tea like her world was intact. Like she hadn't brought someone else's consequences back into our home. I sat across from her and said nothing. She looked at me, smiled faintly. "You okay?" I nodded once. "Just tired." It's wild how easy lying becomes when you've been lied to long enough. Later that night, she tucked the same envelope into her purse like she didn't know I'd already read it. Like she had some plan to spin it, or delay it, or maybe even destroy it. But it was too late. The truth had its hooks in both of us now. I went outside and sat in my car. No destination, no music, just my own thoughts, screaming so loud I couldn't hear anything else. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want drama. I just wanted to rewind time to the moment before I ever asked her what she needed help packing. But we don't get that. Instead, I opened my phone and started scrolling through photos. Not hers, his. I had a name now. Found it by accident when I zoomed in on the hotel receipt's guest signature. It wasn't just scribbles. It was a name I remembered from months ago. Someone she once claimed was just an old colleague passing through town. I found his social media. He was smiling in every photo. Married. 2 kids. Living the clean, polished life of a man who probably thought affairs stayed locked in hotel rooms and didn't follow you home through lab results and paper trails. I saved every screenshot. I wasn't sure why. Maybe for leverage. Maybe for clarity. Maybe because if I couldn't control what had happened, I could at least control what I knew. And then I made a decision. The next day, I called his office. I didn't plan to talk to his wife. I didn't even know he had won until I found her tagged in a post with him at some vineyard, both holding glasses of red wine like a magazine cover. They looked happy. Too happy. That kind of happiness that feels like a punch when you're the one watching everything fall apart. Her name was Lorna, and she had that polished look, like she wore heels even at home and knew how to make tiramisu from scratch. Not the kind of person you want to destroy. But I couldn't look away. I scrolled their photos for almost an hour, paralyzed between fury and pity, until I landed on one of her Instagram reels where she showed their Sunday routine. He was in the background, barbecuing, laughing. And there it was. The same voice. The same laugh I heard muffled through my wife's phone on the night she forgot I was in the hallway. I stared at the screen, knowing what I was about to do would rupture someone else's world, not just mine. But it didn't feel like a choice anymore. It felt like an obligation. Like she deserved to know the person she shared a mortgage and children with had been leaving bits of himself behind in a boutique hotel 2 states away. I dialed the number on his business website and asked for him. The receptionist chirped. "He's not in today? Would you like to leave a message?" I froze, then cleared my throat and said, "Actually, can I speak to his wife? Lorna? I think she manages the PR side." A pause. Then, one moment. I didn't expect her to answer. But she did. Lorna speaking. Her voice was calm, efficient. The voice of someone who organizes fundraisers and signs off emails with warmest regards. I almost hung up. My hands were sweating so much I nearly dropped the phone. But I forced myself to speak. "Hi. This is probably the worst call you'll ever get from a stranger, and I'm sorry for that. But I think your husband and my wife have been involved." The silence was deafening. I heard a click. She'd switched to speaker, maybe, or dropped the phone. I don't know. But I kept going. I told her about the hotel receipt, the note, the lab results. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't dramatize. I just told her what I had. She didn't ask questions. She didn't cry. When I was finished, she said, "What's your wife's name?" I told her. She let out a slow breath. "I see," she said. "I suspected something. I just didn't want to believe it." Then, after a long pause, she added, "Thank you for telling me. I won't forget it." That was it. No yelling. No blame. Just the voice of a woman who'd been bracing for this. I hung up and sat on the floor for what felt like hours, my back against the kitchen cabinets, phone still in my hand like it was keeping me tethered to reality. I kept wondering if I'd done the right thing. If maybe silence would have been kinder. But no, not this time. Silence was what got us here. Later that night, my wife asked me what I wanted for dinner. Like she didn't feel the atmosphere crackling between us. Like the weight of what she carried hadn't already detonated inside me. I looked her in the eyes for the first time in days and said, "Maybe we should talk first." She blinked. "About what?" I pulled the medical envelope from my pocket and placed it on the table. Her face went pale. Lips parted slightly, but no words came. And after that, I added, "I want to know who he is. Not the version you told me. The truth. All of it." She sat down slowly, as if her legs might give out. Then she whispered, "You weren't supposed to find out like this." And I said, "But I did. Now let's begin." She stared at the envelope like it was ticking, like it might explode if she touched it. I didn't push her, not at first. I just sat there, watching the panic rise in her face like steam under glass. I wanted her to speak first. I needed to hear the way she'd spin it. But instead, she just reached for the envelope, opened it with trembling fingers, and read the results like they were unfamiliar, like she didn't already know what they said. Then she folded the paper neatly and set it back on the table between us. still silent. I could hear the fridge humming. Murphy's claws clicked softly on the floor somewhere in the next room. It was the kind of silence that made my skin feel too tight. "You're not mad," she said finally. Not a question, just a confused statement. "I'm beyond mad," I replied. "I'm exhausted." She looked at me, eyes wide and watery, but I didn't soften. "Not this time." "It was one time," she said. "Just once. I didn't plan it. It just happened." "Stop." I raised a hand. "Please don't insult me with that line. You planned it. You packed heels you never wear. You booked a flight I didn't know about. You bought champagne and strawberries. You left a note in a hotel nightstand." She winced. Her shoulders folded in on themselves. She looked so small suddenly. "I wasn't happy," she said, her voice cracking. "And I didn't know how to tell you. I thought if I just had this one moment, this one escape, I'd come back and feel better. Reset everything." "And did you?" I asked. "Did it reset anything?" "No," she whispered. "It made it worse." I leaned forward, elbows on the table. "And what were you going to do with the test results? Wait until I caught whatever he gave you? Or were you planning to lie your way through treatment too?" Her eyes widened. "I was going to tell you. You just didn't think I'd find out this soon." She buried her face in her hands and started sobbing. The kind of ugly, guttural sobs that come when you know the mask is gone and there's nothing left to shield you. But it didn't move me. Not anymore. I felt like I was watching a stranger fall apart. Someone who wore my wife's skin but hadn't been my wife in a long time. "I called him," I said. Her hands dropped. Her eyes snapped to mine. What? "I called his office. Spoke to his wife." She froze like I'd struck her. "You didn't," she breathed. "She deserved the truth. Just like I did. Only difference is, I gave it to her. You tried to hide it from me." She covered her mouth and stood up, pacing in small, erratic circles, her hands flailing like she couldn't decide whether to scream or collapse. "You've ruined everything," she said. "No," I said, standing slowly, calmly. "You ruined everything. I just finally stopped cleaning up after it." Then I walked past her and up the stairs. I didn't slam the door. I didn't pack a bag. Not yet. I just lay down in the guest room with the light off and stared at the ceiling until the lines blurred. That night, she slept on the couch. Or at least she tried to. I heard her crying for hours. But I didn't get up. I didn't comfort her. I let her sit in it. Drown in it. Because for the first time in our marriage, I wasn't her safety net. I was the fall. The next morning, she made breakfast. That alone was unusual. She never cooked when she was anxious. Eggs, toast, even fresh orange juice squeezed into the glass pitcher we hadn't used since her sister's baby shower. She placed everything on the table like we were about to discuss PDA meetings or vacation plans. I watched her pretend, let her play the part. That was the worst part of all this. She still thought it was about convincing me we could move past it. As if betrayal was something you could mop up with fresh linens and polite conversation. She sat down across from me, her eyes puffy, voice soft. "I know what I did is unforgivable. I don't want us to throw everything away." I chewed my toast slowly and swallowed before answering. "You already threw it away. I just finally noticed." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "I didn't mean to hurt you. You didn't even think about me," I said, my voice flat. "That's what hurts more." She reached across the table, but I didn't move. Her hand hovered awkwardly, then retreated. "I ended it," she whispered. "I texted him last night. Told him never to contact me again." I looked up. "Did you apologize to him, too?" "No." "Why not?" She blinked. "Because I'm trying to fix what matters." "No," I said, standing. "You're trying to preserve your comfort. There's a difference." I didn't yell. I didn't throw plates. I just walked out the front door and got in my car. She didn't follow. Maybe she thought I needed space. Or maybe she finally understood she wasn't the center of my orbit anymore. But I didn't go to work. I didn't go to a bar. I drove to a quiet little corner of town where no one would recognize me and sat in a parking lot outside a storage facility. Not because I needed to move things, because my best friend since college, Rory, ran the place, and I knew he'd be there. Rory's the kind of guy who doesn't ask questions unless you ask him to. When I walked in, he just raised an eyebrow and said, "You look like a man who wants to scream into a concrete wall." I said, "Got one available?" We sat in the back office, surrounded by dusty shelves and old clipboards. I told him everything. Not the soft version, the real version. The blood, the bruises to the ego, the envelope, the affair, The call to the mistress's wife. I emptied the whole damn vault. And Rory listened. Didn't interrupt. Didn't give me the usual, "you deserve better" speech. When I finally stopped talking, he leaned back in his chair and said, "So, what now?" I didn't have an answer. I went home after dark. The house was dim, like she was trying to match the mood. She was curled on the couch in one of my hoodies, the one she used to steal because it smelled like safety. I didn't say anything as I passed her on the way to the bedroom. She followed. Quiet steps. Careful voice. "Are you leaving me?" I turned to face her. "Not yet." "Why not?" "Because you don't deserve the easy ending. You don't get to cry for one night and wake up forgiven. You don't get to burn a house down and complain about the ashes." Her eyes filled with tears again, but I was numb to it now. "I'm going to stay," I said, "but not for you. I need to figure out who I am without you in the center. I want to see how you live with the weight of what you've done, knowing I'm still here, watching." She opened her mouth, then closed it. "I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to cheat to even the score. I'm just going to exist. And every time you smile, every time you laugh, every time you reach for me, I want you to wonder if it's the moment I finally leave." And then I shut the door to the bedroom and left her in the hallway with her ghosts. Weeks passed. We lived like two ghosts haunting the same house. Conversations were minimal, mostly about Murphy, bills, the weather. She gave me space like it was penance, always a few steps behind, never pushing. I kept my distance, not out of cruelty, but survival. I needed to feel everything, rage, grief, numbness, without her shaping it. And I think she understood that now. Every night she fell asleep on the couch, and every morning I'd find a blanket folded neatly beside her, like she'd woken early just to tidy the evidence of her collapse. But it was still there. You can't vacuum guilt out of a carpet. You can't Febreze away betrayal. I didn't forgive her. Not then. But something changed the day I found the box. It was sitting outside the bedroom door. A plain cardboard box sealed with tape, her handwriting on top. I opened it to find every hotel receipt, every printed email, every photo of them that she'd secretly kept, even a note she had written to him and never sent, folded into eighths like it had been hidden for a long time. On top, a letter addressed to me. It didn't beg. It didn't justify. It confessed. She wrote about the emptiness that had started growing inside her the year her father died, and how instead of talking to me, she built a mask. She admitted she'd been selfish, that the affair wasn't about passion, it was about feeling powerful again, feeling wanted, and how afterward, when she came home, she saw what she'd done, that she'd poisoned the only thing that had ever truly loved her without conditions. At the end, she wrote, "If you stay, I'll spend the rest of my life becoming someone who deserves to be chosen again. But if you go, I won't chase you. You've already given me more grace than I gave you." I folded the letter and sat there in silence, holding it like it was warm. The next day, I asked her to sit outside with me. First time we'd sat side by side in weeks. She brought coffee. I brought the truth. "I don't know if I love you the same way," I said, "but I'm not ready to stop trying." She didn't cry. She didn't gasp. She just nodded and whispered, "Then I'll earn every second of it." We started small. Short walks with Murphy. Dinner at the table again. A movie without phones between us. And over time, the ache dulled. Not gone, but softened. Replaced by effort. Mutual effort. Months later, we sat in a counselor's office, holding hands like two people trying to rebuild a language they'd forgotten how to speak. It was awkward. It was hard. But it was honest. And honest was more than we'd had in years. I still have her letter. I keep it in my nightstand, not as a wound, but as a reminder that healing isn't a moment. It's 1,000 small choices, 1,000 small promises kept one day at a time. We're not who we were, but maybe that's a good thing, because now we're building something real, from scratch, together.